G'day, fans, and welcome to another exciting episode of Talking Stuff. And I do actually have he literally, come on, dude, what happened, man? You're supposed to join. Now you got to go back. You got to push. That's it. Fine. Hey, you go. Crikey's talk about leaving it to literally the last second. How you going, old son?
Good, mate. How are you?
Well, I'm a bit happier now that you're here. You're stressing me out. I mean, while the countdown was going, no, put it back where it was. Put it back where it was. While the countdown was going on, he decided to join me. It's like, talk about leaving it to dude, stressing me out. What's the deal, dude?
Just a busy afternoon and then mucking around and then getting in and the page not loading and then shutting the computer and restarting it, doing again. But we're here and we're on time and we weren't late, so it all worked out fine.
I wasn't late, but you were. But anyway, look, here we are, fans. Yes, we're back for another exciting episode. There's so much going on in the science fiction world. It is absolutely bananas. And of course, at the moment, it's like humid outside. It was raining yesterday. It's probably going to be raining on Saturday when we're having Quran's sunny Saturdays, which we'll be discussing a bit later on. But first and foremost, before we get right into the meat of it all, how you going, old son? You cooking on gas or what?
Absolutely. It's been a crazy, amazing week. It's been pretty good. Still getting lots of collections through, still sorting and going through stuff. There's been a few really good sci-fi things I've watched this week, and I think we'll discuss them later. I think you've caught up with them as well. So it's been a good week so far.
Very, very cool. Well, anyway, without further ado, we're just going to get straight into it because we've got so much to cover off. And last week, we kind of did have to rush through it a little bit. But first things first, I have to press this button.
I'm so happy with that button and not the Doctor Who, Wayne's World button.
Oh, yeah, good on you, dude. Anyways, look, we've got a whole range of weird and wacky stuff going on. First things first, fans, right? Now, normally we talk about Star Wars, we talk about Star Trek and Doctor Who, but guess what? Instead, we're going to be talking about something completely different. There's actually, hang on, wrong button. Oh, hang on. I pressed the wrong button. Oh, hang on. Let's just start that again. Thank you. Where are we? Add to the, there we go. Sorry about that. That was almost a bit of a spoiler there, wasn't it? Yes, believe it or not, there's a colonial viper at a knife show in Canberra. What is the deal with that, Mr. Aaron?
I don't know. See, this is really weird because this came up on my feed as, am I interested in joining a knife show page because it's got a viper on. So I don't know even how the algorithm works. But I tell you what, a full-size colonial viper, that's pretty awesome. I'd almost drive up to Canberra to see that one.
At a knife show. I mean, no one ever brings a gun to a knife fight, but someone says, I'll bring a colonial viper to a knife show. What is the deal? It looks pretty good, I've got to say, but what is the go, mate?
I was saying to you, if that was reversed and I decided to take a bunch of knives to a science fiction convention, I'd probably be kicked out.
You probably would be too. And I agree with Colin here. So say we all. I've got to say, it looks good. No idea who made it. And that's obviously from the new series. But that is very, very groovy, Mr. Aaron. I've got to say, I'm very, very impressed.
Unless that science fiction convention is Terralcon, then Guy hands everyone a knife on the way in.
Oh, geez, that's not the way to go. That happens at Knife Point out in the west. What can I say? Very, very cool. Anyway, if anybody's just interested, if they happen to go to Canberra to a knife show and they see the viper there and they go, what the Ken hell is this doing here? By all means, let us know. It should be very, very cool. Now, there's always something new going on in the world, and sometimes you learn something and you go, I didn't even know that was even a thing. And believe it or not, as I discovered, Back to the Future has a musical and it's coming to Australia. I didn't even know there was a musical, Mr. Aaron. What is the deal with that?
I absolutely want to see this. It's been on Broadway and in the West End in London for about 4 or 5 years, and I was hoping I'd get over there and see it. Unfortunately, it's coming to Australia, but it's coming to Sydney. I've already signed up for, advance tickets when they go on sale. I don't think it is actually till September next year, though. Wow. But I think this would be one awesome stage show. It's a musical, of course, and if you've seen any of the behind the scenes or the promo for it, it is amazing. It is like a high-end stage show with all the special effects, and it would be sitting there watching the movie Back to the Future. Will you do the road trip up to Sydney to see it with me?
Mate, what can I say? It's the power of love. And with that in mind, Christy's just said, so long as you don't talk about Wicked, I'll be happy. Well, the only thing that's wicked in this particular show is Mr. Aaron over there, but we'll keep his those conversations off to the side. And speaking of the Colonial Viper, good old Natasha's joined us with a little dude. Buy this set of knives for only $40, but wait, there's more. We'll chuck in a viper and a sharpened block. Imagine that. They said, here, and he buy one and get one free.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness, great.
That's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
that's like driving around. And one time, I think I saw an X-wing in a car park at like Westfield, and then the Batmobile turned up at one as well. But a Viper, no one expects that in your feed.
Actually, that would be funny, wouldn't it? Because Christmas time's coming. You go, I'll go buy a set of steak knives for my respective other half, and you come home with a 1-to-1 scale Viper. Where do I put that in the kitchen cupboard? That's what I'd like to know. But
I went out to buy a steak knife, and I came home with 6.
Indeedy. Very good. I just got that. Yes, very, very cool. Yes, you go and play with your other knives. Well, you play with your 1 to 5, and I'll play with number 6 in the bedroom. So there you go. Now, this is not a sci-fi thing. This is a fantasy thing. But this came up this week, and I thought I had to read this twice and do some checking. I did not expect this at all. So apparently, in December, there's a Lord of the Rings animated film being produced, War of the Rohirrim. And it's coming out in the cinemas. It's like, dude, when was the last time there was a fantasy animated movie in the cinemas? What is the deal with that?
Treasure Planet or something. Shows how much you pay attention, though. The trailer for this was when we went and saw Alien Romulus.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah.
I must have slipped that. I was too busy looking for xenomorphs. What can I say? Yeah, so how about that? So I applaud them for, one, they've done the movie, but two, that it's actually getting a cinematic release. You do wonder how well it's going to go being an animated show. But what are your thoughts? Is there still hope in the world for animated movies, Mr. Aaron?
I'm sure hundreds of people will go and see it. It's one of those. It's one of those movies because it's attached to the Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you've seen the trailer. Well, you have seen the trailer because you sat through it. It actually starts out like a Peter Jackson's map and images from the movie, and then it sort of goes to manga, and the whole universe changes that way. So they've kind of trying to pull in the people that like the Lord of the Rings. The other thing that's coming up in my feed, if we're talking about the animated movie, there's a Lord of the Rings stage musical in Melbourne next year as well. So that's been coming up too. It's like I've been targeted with stage shows and stuff this week on my Facebook feed. It's okay. I mean, it's good to see we have lots of live stuff based on fantasy franchises, I guess.
Yeah, I was just astounded. An animated movie in the cinemas. I thought that is a pretty rare thing these days. Regarding Back to the Future coming to Australia, forget the DeLorean. Just go straight to the Datsun. Bit of the old 120Y. Absolutely, that's the way to go. So that is absolutely fantastic.
But like they traveled through time, not when it gets to 88. It's when the Tirana burns out the back tires from doing donuts.
Yeah, I used to own a Datsun too, by the way, which is actually kind of funny. So the old Datto can't go past the old Datto. You put a time machine inside a Datto.
I love it.
Chris, what?
I know a joke about Datsun cogs, but I won't say it because that's an insult.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's a long one too. Christy saw the trailer, didn't like the animation style. Yes, it's very anime related, which is interesting in itself. Marcus said regarding the Back to the Future thing, went to see it when he was in the UK last year, but ran out of time. That is so ironic. You ran out of time to see a time travel show. Yeah. Definitely going to the old Back to the Future. So, I mean, that is the ultimate gag. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry I'm late to the usher. I ran out of time. They go, well, go get your Datto and go back half an hour and get into the seats in time. So, yeah, absolutely love it. But so there's a couple of interesting things coming up, Mr. Aaron. Colonial Vipers in Canberra, animated movies for Lord of the Rings, and the Back to the Future musical.
I know. I think it's one of those things where it's a good time to be a nerd.
Well, that's right. Or alternatively, you can just whip out the Kingswood. Yes, very, very
The Kingswood? Cool. You're not taking the Kingswood. I just spray and wipe the bumper bar.
Exactly right. I just glad wrapped the aerial indeedy doody didy. Anyway, another show that's just come out recently. Now, Aaron and I were huge fans of this. You actually put me onto this, and the second season has started. And I think, I don't know about you, but I'm sort of waiting till the whole thing's out before I go the full binge. Silo, which was an absolutely fantastic movie, a bit of a sleeper hit, if you will, is into its second season. Are you watching this episode by episode, or are you going to wait till the end when it's all available, dude?
I am. I actually wanted to watch the whole thing in one go, but Tennille, who watches stuff with me, really liked the first season, so she wants to watch it week by week. And we're 3 episodes in, and with no spoilers, I can say I think it's just as good as the first season so far.
Very cool. So for those people who haven't seen Silo, it is well worth checking out. The bulk of it is all set underground, and the production values are outstanding. It looks really good, and it's a really interesting story too, actually. So it'll definitely get you're thinking. It's very it's got the thriller-esque not Thriller is in the Michael Jackson Thriller, but it's obviously an interesting sort of story about what happens when you find something that's not actually meant to be around because it's obviously set in the future. Well worth checking out. Colin has said, yep, Silo is an awesome series, which is very cool. And yeah, very, very cool. Hang on. Actually looks pretty good. This is the Rohirrim thing. A quick fun factoid, that would be the 4th Lord of the Rings animated film. Can you name the other 3, Mr. Aaron? Because I can only mention
there's
2.
the Lord of the Rings, the actual one, Ralph Bakshi one, and then there's the Hobbit, and then there's the Return of the King, which people don't know. The Hobbit and Return of the King are both musicals.
Really? Oh my God! No, is the Hobbit a musical? I mean, unless we're talking about 2 different Hobbits, because there was a Hobbit made in the 70s, if I recall. So
yeah. Don't you remember that had some really bad music in? Like, you don't want to hear it because they're earworms, but they're really bad earworms.
Earworms, Jesus Christ. Absolutely fantastic. Actually, speaking of fantastic, Moneybags has said the Silo is fantastic, and it is. I didn't know Return of the King. Yeah, okay. Not entirely sure where that came out, but yes, I was wondering, Ralph Bakski's version, The Hobbit, and you've obviously mentioned Return of the King, which is cool, and you've got this one coming up now, which is a very, very groovy. So, Joe said she actually really liked The Hobbit. Is that the animated film or the 4-part, 5,000 part, 6.5 hours, bloody Lord Jackson, what's his name? Peter Jackson version. Yeah, because the animated version was interesting, if you like that sort of thing, but not as good as the Ralph Bakshi version, in my opinion. Hang on, the 5th. Hang on. It's the 5th. There was actually, hang on, I've got to press a button. Oh, geez, I've been wanting to do this for absolutely yonks. Here we go. How good was that? I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Actually, the 5th, there was also a short version of The Hobbit done in Czechoslovakia in the 70s. God, where'd you pull that one out of?
Was that animated though? I thought that was live action with. Maybe there's some animation and live action mixed in that one. It's on YouTube. You can find them. They're horrible to the point of they're amazing.
I was going to say, how would you know if there was a freaking Czechoslovakian bloody Lord of the Rings movies?
You know what they say. I've got a girlfriend in every East European country.
As one does. Very, very important. Anyway, so there's a few of them out there, fans. Go and check them out. That's actually the musicals, non-musicals. Anyway, there's another one coming in the cinemas in a couple of weeks' time, which is very, very cool. Now, last week, we talked about the exhibition that's occurring in Melbourne called The Fan Strike Back, and we said it was opening on Saturday last week. Well, apparently it didn't. It's actually opening on Saturday this week. It was delayed by a week. I heard a rumor in the wind that some of the shipping containers came in late, and it is coming out this Saturday. So
I heard they bought a dodgy door off someone and couldn't get it away.
Yeah. There's a dude who made a door, and I tell you what, they'll be asking for their money back on that one. Dodgy as. Anyway, it opens up this Saturday. So as I did the promo last week for this, the Fan Strike Back. Awesome that they've got a Star Wars exhibition occurring in this country, in this city, in fact. And people, it's going to be here for 3 months, to the best of my knowledge. So it is well worth having a look at. Regarding the door, you can have a look at it and go, oh, poor quality workmanship or what, but the rest of it is going to be awesome.
So is it going to be as good as the Empire Strips Back, that show out at the Palais a couple of years ago?
Oh, I tell you what, you have to wonder, which is a very, very cool. I got a quick RT. I have no idea what the numbers are meant to represent. Hopefully that's actually
just one of my Eastern European girlfriends giving me her phone number.
Very, very cool. No worries. In that case, Artie, I think it was. Can you check out to see if there's a Lord of the Rings animated movie in your neck of the woods? Unbelievable. Anyway, so yes, the exhibition's coming out. It is opening on Saturday. Be sure to check it out if you haven't got your tickets already. It should be outstanding considering it's traveled the world. We've got Back to the Future musicals. What'd you say the other thing was? We've got freaking Vipers from in Canberra, and now we've got Star Wars exhibitions as well, which is very, very groovy. So good stuff. What do you reckon there, Mr. Aaron?
Like I said, it's a good time to be a nerd, really. There's plenty to choose from.
It is indeed. And while this show is doing extremely well, we have to bring it back to earth with some stuff that we just can't get away from.
Doctor Who! Hey! The TARDIS! Doctor Who! Hey! The TARDIS!
Well, there we go. Yes, it is that damn bloody show again. And it's a bit of a big deal this time, Mr. Aaron. So I understand there's some cool stuff happening in the Doctor Who side of things because There is, I'm going to press on a different button for this to work. Hopefully it does work. It is a coloured version of the War Game, Mr. Aaron.
I know, and this version is a cut down, modernised version with new special effects and, of course, colour. They've had this in the pipeline for a couple of years now. It's one of those things that I think I've expected for a while. I didn't know it was only going to be 90 minutes because this is actually a 10-episode story. So basically, they've edited each 25-minute episode down to 9 minutes each. So that's a lot of story gone. But it also means for a modern audience who don't want to sit down for 4 hours watching black and white Doctor Who, they might be able to get through it. I think it's a good thing to have different versions of the classic Doctor Who, as long as you can always have the original version.
Well, the key thing is, and story-wise, shut that all aside, it's the colorization process that they've gone through and the restoration process, and that's a bit of a big deal. As you said to me here, sorry, wrong button. Sorry, because I'm using a slightly different system here. Hang on, what have I done? Oh, yeah, sorry. As you said to me, this is on the left is how the original footage looked. On the right-hand side of that is when they upgraded, did probably the AI sort of upscaling. And of course, you've got the color version. Yeah.
Sorry, what's actually happened? They found original location footage, so they've got the film trims, the film inserts. Sorry. So originally they were just using the broadcast, I guess 16mm print, but they've actually found the original, what was edited into that. So it's actually going to be higher definition than the original version was in color, which is pretty cool.
So what this is telling me, fans, now this is important. The Greg Kings of the world. Blue collared shirts are now going to be the Doctor Who costume of choice, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Now, see, on a serious note, though, the fact that they can restore this as well as they have and do the colorization process, because, back in the old days, in the 80s, when colorization of movies and mainly movies was the go, some of it was a little bit half-assed, but this looks very, very slick. And if your brain can make you think that this wasn't made in 1969, but 3 weeks ago, that's actually very, very impressive. So who knows where it'll go after this. I don't know how much work was involved to do what they needed to do, but because there's the upscaling as well as the colorization, but it's actually pretty damn impressive, Mr. Aaron. What do you reckon?
A lot of work. I'm impressed because it's very evocative of the BBC went over to colour a little bit after ITV and London Weekend Television and stuff, and it's very evocative of the children's shows that they were doing back then. So they haven't really gone for, we've totally modernised it, apart from the special effects, I guess. But it does look like something that could have been filmed in colour if they'd switched the colour on the cameras at the time, kind of thing. So that's impressive.
So Rusty Babes has said Trouton had a blue shirt on in the 3 at Dockies. Yeah, so as I understand it, what they do is they input a colour in the one bit and the AI just works out, well, if that's this colour, the rest should be that colour, which is very, very groovy. Karana said we should auction some of Aaron's shirts for charity, so long as they're not washed. That's the most important thing. And he does have a shirt in the store that has my face plastered all over it, which is very cool. Now, if you're hearing noises at the moment, I have my front door open and there's birds screeching outside. And that's chirpy birds, not like lovely ladies just lining up. One of your Eastern European ones, in fact. Hello, Svetlana. Just sit tight. Take a number and wait in the queue. Marcus said, Docky Who, the War Games, I can go back to the original. I'm still looking forward to this. Yep, they found a better quality print, as Aaron said. Yeah, I think it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. So the question will be how the audio works. Hopefully they fixed the audio up as well and made it all very, very juicy. So
yeah, and amazingly, they're showing it free to air on the 23rd of December. So it's not even a big cash grab where you have to buy the DVD or download it. It's actually going to be on BBC 4 as sort of a part of the Christmas programming.
Yeah, totally agree. Chrissy said it does look too jarring in colour. Some shows would. Yep, exactly right. A couple of things left to go. Now we're getting to the lighthearted stuff. We mentioned Sunny Saturdays earlier, right? So Sunny Saturday is coming out next Saturday. It's supposed to rain, be cold, whatever. Completely different contrast to last week. But outside Aaron's store, 11:30. Go here before you go off to the Austria Christmas party. It should be an absolute blast. Coffee, collectibles, and cholesterol. I'll be there. My other half will be there. Sonny will be there. It'll be an absolute blast and a half. So, except Aaron, because he'll be working in the shop. So, to you.
No,
is that right?
I've got this weekend off. So, you can be there. In sunny, sultry Saturday.
So you were going to spend your day off at work, is that right? Just outside with the rest of us monkeys, is that right?
No, I'm in the city for the weekend in a 5-star hotel.
Oh, okay. Very, very cool.
I
Good to
might
see that.
even
All right.
check out I might even check out the fan Strike Back.
Ooh, oh, you've been whacking. Check it out, mate. Very, very cool. Yes, this Saturday, absolutely awesome. So there you go. Now, this is getting some stupid stuff. So, okay, first things first. June Prophecy came out last week, right? We talked about it. Second episode came out this week. Absolutely freaking awesome. The show is spectacular. We're going to do a DNA reviews on it at the end of its season. Very, very cool. That I couldn't help myself. I had to laugh at this other day. We've decided to relaunch, right, the Australasian June Guild. Okay, which is very cool, celebrating the 84 movie. Okay, that's actually very, very important. So as you can see, at our very first meeting, which doesn't exist yet, we're going to have live cat milking, going to eat a cow's tongue, and of course there will be midgets, which is very cool. But Mr. Aaron, this is a very serious moment. Speaking of your Eastern European girlfriends, right? I discovered recently that there's actually a line in June which would be the ultimate pickup line at a bar to meet girls, right? Now, Christy's the only female watching at the moment. So, Christy, tell me how this would work for you, right? So, picture this. It's a bar. There's some quiet jazz music playing in the background. There's a hot-looking babe standing at the bar. You know, this is a Moneybags talking. This is me. And you and you go, you know, I've got a bit of June in my head, a bit of a rackus, all that sort of thing. I'm going to just saunter up to this lovely lady. I'm just going to see if I can like put a line on her, right? So, this is the image, right? Now, I don't drink wine, but, you know, what the hell? Okay, so I'm wearing my June badge. I go up to this lovely lady and I say to her, hey, I was wondering, would you be interested in mingling your water with my water? Is that the ultimate pickup line or what, Mr. Aaron?
Well, I would probably have gone with, hey, do you want to check out my sandworm? But I guess it's one of those things. It depends what classiness of bar you're in, I guess. You know,
oh, well, what do you reckon her reaction to that is going to be? I thought about it the other night. It actually kept me awake, and I thought, that is an awesome pickup line. You know, do you mind if I mingle your water with my water? I was like...
Well, it is funny that you brought that back, because I was thinking the same thing, how it's a peak time at the moment, isn't it, to launch the June fan club? And what do you think would be a good thing over summer for an inaugural meeting?
Well, it's funny now, fans. The reason why Aaron was late is he put together this ridiculously horrible video, which I'm really actually don't even want to put up, but I will, because you know it's. But anyway, he's right. When we launch the Australasian June Guild, we're going to have a social event, right? It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So we're going to show you this little thing that Aaron put together. This is what he does with his spare time, okay, fans? And I like this question from Christy. Are you going to be milking the cats by hand or a tiny machine? Oh my God, where are we going with this? All right, so I'm going to show you this video, fans. I didn't make it. It's an Aaron special, so be prepared to be entertained. But this is the first event of the Australasian June Guild.
The first of many.
Oh gosh. Hang on, I'll put the sound up for you.
Now, you go chuck your hand on the Barbie.
She's using her voice.
We don't want any of this rare or medium rare hands. You keep it on the Barbie until it's so charred it tastes like a hockey puck.
See, that is just like, can you explain to me what all that was about? I mean, that was just pretty horrendous, dude.
I thought it was funny, and you know what? I didn't have enough time to put like sizzling meat sound on it either, which would have made it a whole lot better.
Now, Moneybags is right. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise is my all-time pickup line. It has a complete 0% success rate, but I still got to beat the old mingling one's water, your water with my water. That is definitely the way to go. Anyway, that's what Aaron spent most of his day at the store doing, putting that together. But there shall be a barbecue at the non-existent June Australasian Guild, whatever it's called, thing that we got going on. So I agree with this. It does explain a great deal. So. Oh, yeah. Very, very cool. So, well, good stuff. Anyway, so what do you think? A June fan club, the only one of its type in the whole planet, celebrating the 1984 movie. Do you reckon we should make it a thing or what, Mr. Aaron?
I actually think you should actually be the head of it, and I guess that would be the Benny Jesuit Reverend Mother.
I just realised something here. Hang on, I've got to go back. Right, this is my thing. This dude here, right? Oh, hang on, I've got to press this. Hang on, I've got to do some different buttons. That dude on the left, he's the Kwisatz Haderach. That's how cool that guy is. So that's what he should have said. Hey, I'm the Kwisatz Haderach. Do you mind mingling my water with your water? There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Take a number one in the queue, lovely ladies. So there you go. Very, very cool. Marcus said that was in league for a Logie. Yeah, I don't think so. So very, very cool. All right. What do you reckon, fans? Australasian June Guild, give us your thoughts on that one. While you do that, we are going to get back into some serious stuff. We've been trying to get through this bloody segment for weeks now. And of course, it's to do with the freaking 70s movies. We were supposed to only do this like 3 weeks ago. And now we're in our third part, Mr. Aaron. And I made a point of actually watching a couple of them because I thought I hadn't seen them for a while. So we're going to be discussing them no matter what. Is there anything you want to say about 1970 movies from up to 70 to 76 before we actually get into the bloody things again?
Just 3 weeks. Who would have thought the 70s went for so long?
Well, okay, let's get into it. A bit of serious conversation. So the first one I've got to bring up, most people don't even realize this is a sci-fi movie. But of course, it's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And of course, it is a sci-fi movie because all of the dudes and all the Frankenfurters, droogs and whatever else, they come from the planet of Transylvania. And of course, that's the reason why the theme song was science fiction double feature. And now, I don't know, have you actually seen the movie before or actually know much about it?
I've seen the movie about 30 times and seen about 3 different live versions of it. So I'm quite well versed in the movie.
So did you ever like really connect to the fact that it's actually a science fiction film? I mean, or you just didn't really sort of connect with that?
Yeah. The whole point at the end, they all go back to Transylvania.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody knows that Rocky Horror ended up being a massive institution and has a gigantic fan base, which even today I think still exists. And I agree with you. You go to see it in the live cinemas. Most cinemas get trashed by all the chucking of the rice and the toast and whatever else.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
You know, most people don't know there was a sequel called Shock Treatment, which no one ever brings up and no one ever sees, and it's never played. Sometimes it's actually included as an extra on like the deluxe version of Rocky Horror because no one wants to buy it separately.
Well, it's kind of funny because we've had discussions here about movies that don't deserve sequels or remakes, and doing Shock Treatment was definitely like, oh, dude, you can't catch lightning in a bottle a second time. And that was Richard O'Brien who did that. It's like, dude, you just got to thrive on the success of what you got. Don't try and replicate it. I like this one from Christie, the 70s, the decade that never ended, which was very, very groovy. It's a sci-fi musical. That's true. It started off as being a musical on stage before they turned into a film. But it was very, very successful. And as I said, it still has its life in the world, and which is very groovy. But it was an English production that the Americans had a hand in. That's the reason why Brad and Janet are American, while the rest of the cast are primarily English. Now, this one I thought we would have covered off weeks ago, but we haven't. And it was a good old Logan's Run. Now, this, of course, was made before Star Wars and Close Encounters, so it was a bit of a big deal when they did it. And I guess the funny thing about it, for those who don't know, in the book, the people were supposed to go to Carousel to renew at the age of 18 or 21. I think it was. I can't remember which one it was. And in the film, they realized that, well, if they'd have to cast teenagers for it, and that wasn't going to work, so they pushed it to 30. But it's that living that whole hedonistic lifestyle where everybody just wants to party. They got no idea what's going on. And of course, once they reach Carousel, they effectively get killed off. But Logan's Run, Mr. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
I loved Logan's Run. And what a lot of people don't realize now is Michael York was a bit of a heartthrob back in the day. And to put him in a science fiction actually got a lot of women who normally wouldn't go and see science fiction to watch Logan's Run. I know my mum loved Logan's Run and she only watched it because Michael York was in it. It's got everything, hasn't it? It's got futuristic dystopia, a bit like Soylent Green, except they're not eating people and they're not in squalor. It's got boxy, literally called boxy, robots. It's got Farrah Fawcett as a plastic surgeon who gets cut up by a laser. It's got the whole chase thing. It's got Peter Ustinov and a better performance by Cats than the people in the movie Cats. It really has got like something for everyone. And I love the model work of the city, which is actually a really great big model. It is one of those sci-fi movies which when it came out was big budget and watchable, and you can watch now with nostalgia and it's still good.
So Moneybag said it was 21 in the book. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I thought it was 21 actually, and but they would have to cast younger actors, and they didn't want to do that. And you are right. Alongside Michael York, it had Jenny Agutter, of course, which was a bit of a big deal. The funny thing about the movie, and this happens a lot with these sort of stories, where you have this complete, like, in their perspective, utopian society. It's great. It's wonderful. They just live in the party life, whatever else. They get to the end, and of course, the entire structure of the city sort of falls apart. Movie ends, your Peter Ustinov is still running around. And you go, well, what happens now? Okay. I mean, they all starve to death because they've just destroyed the entire infrastructure of the city that they've been living in for all these years because they've got no idea how to survive. So that's the bit of these stories that never actually goes any further. They say, oh, they'll just have to figure it out themselves. They won't. They'll all starve to death, if anything else. So, anyway, not to worry. Yeah, it's interesting.
It is one of those things. I've said it before where I really think you could put Logan's Run and Soylent Green together and you live till you're 21 and then you get turned into food. The other thing you were mentioning, it's got Jenny Agutter. The last thing she was in that I remember, she was one of the big heads on the screens in the background of the Avengers. She was one of the heads of the agency. And the first thing I remember her in talking about not being able to cast young people and stuff was an Australian movie called Walkabout, where she was underage and there was actually a lot of nudity in it. It caused a lot of controversy at the time.
Yes, that's completely true. I think I'm 15 or 16 years old at that point. And and of course, recently she's been in the thing about where they birth kids, midwives.
Oh, yes.
But yes, you are right. She's actually in the Avengers. She's part of those guys, which is very, very cool. And of course, you remember her from American Werewolf in London. Now, this is one of the 70s movies I made a point of watching because I thought I haven't seen this in decades. And I tell you what, it was a bit of a mind spin because I thought, okay, I'm just remembering it all over again. And of course, it was The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie. And one thing about this film, it's definitely not for children because you're talking about nudity. There's a lot of nudity in this. And it's interesting, the concept of the fact that he's an alien. He wants to get back to his home planet. He becomes this, you can almost relate it to your Elon Musks of the world and whatever else, his multi-trillionaire dude who's trying to build this rocket ship so he can take water back to his home planet. It is very trippy stuff. Now, do you remember this film at all, Mr. Aaron?
Absolutely. There's a couple of interesting just personal facts about this movie. My parents, when I was growing up, let us watch anything. It was a R-rated free from all sort of soon as we were in primary school. But for some reason, my parents would not let us watch The Man That Fell to Earth. So that instantly meant as soon as we were going to the video library by ourselves, it was the first thing we hired. So I remember it as being an absolute mind-blowingly weird movie with weird nudity and alien nudity and weird scenes that didn't seem to make any sense. So it is a surreal gem. And also, it's the movie that apparently David Bowie never recovered from because he used to take some of his performances into his own personality, and this really affected him for the rest of his life.
Colin said, did David Bowie have a major time on display? No, but in his interviews, he said he was on cocaine the entire way through and doesn't even remember doing it. It is interesting. It's long. And it doesn't really have a defined ending either. But you can clearly see it's a 1970s trip fest. And make of that what you will. But there's a lot of nudity, both male and female. And some of it you go, okay, I'm following the story. And now, like, all right, I'm a bit lost. But it's an interesting concept. And it could happen in real life. And, of course, as I said, you can kind of relate to him as being some of the big wigs. Like, I mean, the best example is Elon Musk. He takes over Twitter, says, all right, let's change the name, change the branding, just at the drop of a hat. And, of course, in the film, David Bowie's character does exactly the same thing with some of the technology that he's working with. So, no, just the Ziggy Stardust. Yeah, exactly right. But yes, interesting. And he actually plays the character perfectly. He just has that real look of an alien, which is very, very cool. So, Rusky Babes said he seen Man Who Fell to Earth, but can't remember much. I think most of the people who saw it in the 70s don't remember it much either. So, very, very cool. Now, the other week we were talking about Westworld. I made a point of watching the sequel to it, Future World. Which is kind of cool because once again, it's the whole thing of robots taking over the world, mate. And it's actually got a very, very Quatermass sort of feel to it, Quatermass too, where the dudes are producing robots to, replace actual leaders and rich people and generals and all sort of bizzo. In Future World, sets 2 years after Westworld. Do you remember Future World at all, Mr. Aaron? Because it didn't exactly get a very glowing review.
No, I do remember it because it wasn't one that, by the time this was out, it was a video movie, and I devoured all the science fiction stuff as soon as I could find it when I was a lot younger. And I do remember at the time it being a good movie. It reminded me the I remember the androids in this, or the robots in this, reminded me of the Cybernauts for some reason in the Avengers, because a lot of that period I was watching a lot of different stuff at the same time. I do remember the special effects weren't up to snuff as much as the Westworld movie was, though.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept and it kind of works, but it's a bit slow and it probably could have done with a bit more heavier editing. It had Peter Fonda in it, and in that regard, okay, this is all really groovy. Let's see how the story progresses. But unfortunately, compared to Westworld, yeah, it kind of didn't really cut the mustard. And our last one, I got more to show, but I said, you know what, I'm not going to be a part 4 of this discussion. I thought, how do I finish it off? And I go, let's go to, I mean, even I don't remember this, Death Race 2000. Mr. Aaron, what do you remember about this movie, my dude?
I remember this was the movie we would hire every time we got a chance to have a sleepover or something. It had everything. It had cars, racing, explosions, extreme violence, nudity, killing people in nursing homes. I don't know if you remember, they'd get points for killing people. And at one point, they have a race past a nursing home. So the staff of the nursing home bring all the people out in their wheelchairs to get a closer look, and one of the cars just mounts the pavement and plows through all of them. I mean, that's the kind of movie we need more of, isn't it? And it has Sylvester Stallone in one of his pre-fame roles.
Mate, absolutely fantastic. That is a very, very cool. Quickly, Russell said robot duplicate plot was worn out by the mid-70s. Funnily enough, we talked about Stepford Wives last week, which kind of features on the rain thing. And I'm just going to chuck this as an honourable mention because I do remember this movie. Phase 4 about ants, and the photography of the ants is absolutely fantastic. Freaky shit, ants up close. What can I say, dude? There you
go. Intelligent ants up close. That's yes. Anyone who hasn't seen this movie should actually check it out. It's do you know what? I haven't seen it for years, so it might not hold up, but it was a crazy but unbelievable movie, and I remember it being a good one. And here's a fun factoid that people might not know. It was Martin Landis did Death Race 2000, and they actually called the second Blues Brothers 2000, not because it was set in 2000 or anything, just as a homage to Death Race 2000.
Well, there you go, which is very, very cool. Anyway, Phase 4, ants, and they had a special photography unit, because you got to remember, an ant is only like this big, and they had them up really, really close. It looked very, very groovy, but I don't remember it either. But yeah, intelligent ants, mate, that's the last thing we need in this world. Very cool, Mr. Aaron. Anyway, that's the end of this. What?
I was just going to say, except our friend Ant, he wasn't that small.
No, he wasn't. There you go. Anyway, that's the end of the 70s. I'm done with them now. Piss them off. Next time it'll be the 80s or something else. So there you go. Lots more movies. Check them out. It is very, very groovy. We have to move on, Mr. Aaron, because I tell you what, as always, we're running behind time, which means
why didn't we do Star Wars? Star Wars is a 70s movie. We didn't do Star Wars.
What do you do Star Wars? Oh, we're going to press this button. Shut up, Mr. Aaron. Here we go.
A question.
All right. So speaking of which, this is actually something that Aaron Rusky Babes brought up just 2 days ago. And I thought, that's actually a very interesting question. And it's a pretty straightforward one. But if you think about it, it actually has a bit more impact. So the question for you tonight, Mr. Aaron, is, speaking of Star Wars, would Star Wars still have been a massive hit if it was released in 1967 instead of 1977?
That's a really interesting question. Would it have been the same movie, or would it have had special effects available in 67?
No, let's assume it's exactly the same movie. So this predates 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I think it would have been a big hit. I actually don't think it would have been as big a hit as it was, because the thing that people don't remember about the 70s, even though we've just gone through them for 3 weeks, it was a much grayer, starker period of movies than the 50s and 60s, where the sci-fi was bright and was sort of colourful and aimed at the more Buck Rogers gee whiz stuff, rather than the 70s, which had 10 years of dystopia and grey, the government's taking over, big brother. So I think it would have been a big hit, but I don't think it would have been as massive a hit, because it was such a different movie at the time from what was around in the 70s. So you had the Vietnam War, and you had all of this stuff on where people were very jaded and they actually needed some escapism. And up until this point, all the science fiction had been, your Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Soylent Greens and stuff like that. Even 2001 is a more science movie than a science fiction movie. Probably previous to that, you've got the Planet of the Apes movies, which would be the closest thing to the same audience as Star Wars sort of action adventure, but they're not on the same level. Then you go back, and it's a generational thing because you have the old serials that Star Wars was based on, like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. But I do think George Lucas was really lucky in a lot of things. He was the first one to do the high grade special effects with ILM, and he was the first one to, take the old serial tone of stuff and make it into a movie that was, really appealing to all ages. But he was also really lucky with the timing when he released the movie, that the world was ready for a movie like Star Wars. If it was 10 years earlier, it would have been a hit, but I think it would have just faded into the Lost in Space and the TV shows and the Star Treks that were on TV at the time. I mean, Star Trek was a hit on TV in the 60s, but it wasn't a massive blockbuster until, over 10 years later, when the timing was right for them to release a movie. And who could have expected that first Star Trek movie would have been as big a hit as it was? If they'd released that 10 years earlier, it wouldn't have been, because it wouldn't have been as special. So Star Wars, it would have been an amazing movie still, but I just don't think the timing would have quite worked to push it to that huge, biggest movie ever at the time that it was. What do you think about that one?
I actually agree with you. Funnily enough, Russell said when he posed the question, I would assume it was made using 60s special effects. All right. So, yeah, okay. Because I was thinking, as Chrissy said, same actor, same effects. Yes, right across the board. Bearing in mind that even though ILM sort of was groundbreaking at the time, they did do some unbelievable special effects for 2001. So I worked on The View. It was the same movie. So from a visual effects perspective, it may have been absolutely awesome. But I agree with you. The timing of the late 70s kind of really worked for it, because America was such a depressive state. We've covered that off, as you said, in the 70s. Whereas in the 60s, not so much. So I think for the 60s, science fiction was still a bit of a outside choice in terms of what people were going to watch. It may have added a big impact, and a lot of people say that's fantastic, but it may not have resonated with people as much as it did when it came out 10 years later. So one of the funny things about watching science fiction movies at all is if you look at movies in the late 50s compared to the late 60s, there's like a 30-year difference, and it's only one decade, because by then the Hays Code had sort of phased out. Color became a bit more common. New Hollywood was kicking in, so the 60s movies were a lot more realistic, whereas the 50s movies were very much classic Hollywood, if you will. So I tend to think that had Star Wars come out in the late 60s, it may not have had as big an impact as it did 10 years later. And I think that's, as you said, it is all to do with the timing. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, if you tried to change it to 1960 special effects, well, that's a different story altogether. I don't know how that would have just tanked in the ass. Okay, yeah, it wouldn't have gone anywhere if they had have done that. So, very, very cool. So, anything else you want to add to that, Mr. Aaron?
No, that was a really interesting question, though. Like, you often hear hypotheticals, but I haven't heard that one before, so that was a good one.
Yeah, I just thought of it a couple of days ago, which is very, very groovy. Speaking of special effects, now this one is a bit. We're just going. Okay, so we've answered that question. I'm going to move on. Okay, this one is a bit of a mind bender for a lot of people, and it's just got a million billion tongues wagging all over the planet. Right? It's a Star Trek thing. Now it is 765874 Unification. Right, and we're just going to explain the name in a tick. It has just come out, I think, a week or two ago. Hundreds of billions of views all around the planet. It's like deep fake central. The thing is awesome. There's no dialogue in it at all, except for one line that gets referenced by Kirk from one of the movies. And a lot of people, it's a bit of a brain trip, actually. Wouldn't be out of the place in the 70s. So for those people who've got no idea what this is, we're not going to show it. We're just going to talk about it. I'm going to show some images from it. But first things first, the damn name. What the hell does the name represent? Well, as it turns out, the company called Otoy, they are deep fake software specialists. Okay, so they've been making a whole bunch of deep fake films, short films, for the Gene Roddenberry estate. High end, high production quality, high budgets. They're not fan films. They're officially licensed and endorsed. That's the difference between a fan film and a short film. In this case, a fan film is not endorsed by the company that owns the rights, but this one is. And the reason why it's called 765874, is it's based around this character, Ensign Colt, who appeared, I think, in one of the original pilot episodes, maybe the Cage or where no one has gone before. And the number represents her. As to why, I've got no idea, right? But anyway, that's what, and they've made a whole bunch of short films all based around this character, or at least her name. And recently they produced Unification, which is very cool. And that's her there. I think it's a shot from the film. That's what she's meant to look like, this particular character. Mr. Aaron, you saw this the other day, Unification. I'm not going to go through the numbers because I keep forgetting them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I saw it, and I think it dropped late at night, or latest, and you were still awake, and I said, watch it, and you said, I'll watch it the next day. I go, no, you have to watch this now. Now, this is one of those things, and I guess it's just for me because I grew up with the original Star Trek and the original movies, and I've really liked, Strange New Worlds and some of the movies they've done and stuff. And I watched this, and I kind of go, well, this is what's been wrong with Star Trek for, probably the last 20 years. This absolutely resonated with me. Now, when you have deep fake technology and de-aging and stuff like that, it often causes what they call the uncanny valley, where you see it and you go, I'm not buying this because I can tell it's fake. Like Tarkin in, Rogue One and other stuff. I tell you what, the uncanny valley is getting shallower and shallower for me, because I watched this and there are some scenes in this which were so good. I'm like, is this been deep faked? Or has this been lifted from old footage and they're just using younger versions? No, the whole thing was created for this this movie, and it just shows you there's scenes in this that absolutely fool me into thinking it's younger versions of William Shatner. Now, I was also impressed. Shatner came and did work on this for them, so it's totally endorsed. It's also endorsed by the Leonard Nimoy estate, and there is Mr. Spock is in it as well. And then the thing that also blew me away, because it was so out of the blue, they've got Robin Curtis, who was the second version of Savick, comes back. So for me, for a couple of minute little nostalgia trip, it pushed all the buttons, and I just thought it was one of the best Star Trek things I've seen for decades.
So I'm going to show some pictures from this thing. The problem with it is now deepfake technology can't do sound, right? So they don't speak, right? That's the one disadvantage that they have at the moment. So the whole thing is all visual with music and blah, 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 blah. But the story is kind of tripping people out. So I'm just going to show a couple of pictures. We'll probably chat through them as we go through it. It is unbelievably high quality, very, very high budget. It's the dude with Gary Mitchell, who appeared in whatever episode it was 100,000 years ago in the original series, who can change time and do all this sort of stuff.
Where no man has gone before. Yeah.
So
and they got
there's
the
a lot.
original Sorry.
Yeah. So they're doing a lot. There's a lot of interpretation into the story. Not everybody's got this figured out as to what it all means. There's a lot of it could be this or it could be that, which is very, very groovy. But yes, that's the guy from 2001. I just gone blank. Which is very, very cool.
Which just point out to viewers, that isn't using footage from old Star Trek. They got the guy back who is an old man now, and they de-aged him, and it looks that good that I thought it was original Star Trek footage, but it isn't. They've actually got to the point where it looks that good with de-aging technology.
Yeah, Gary Lockwood. I had to try and think there.
Yes.
So the idea is that this is meant to represent what happens with Kirk in Star Trek Generations when he's dealing with the Nexus and Dr. Saran and all the rest of it, because you remember Kirk dies in this particular show. Now, remember, this is all interpretive. Okay, there's no spoilers here because people are interpreting this different ways. And the idea is, the theory is that maybe some of him is still left inside the Nexus from Generations. It shows shots of Starfleet Academy, which looks very, very groovy. I don't know who this person is meant to be. I thought it was meant to be the Jolt lady, but I could be wrong. And you just show random shots of various things, which look very cool. Some Star Trek fans out there have probably got this all worked out as to what it all represents, but some people haven't. They've got no idea what it's meant to be. And of course, in Generations, the Enterprise crashed, which is what's being represented here. So these are all flashback things. In the Daystrom Institute, apparently that's where Kirk's remains have been left behind. So the theory is that Gary Mitchell is bringing Kirk back so he can have a proper death with Spock. That's the interpretation. As to how that's happening and why that's happening, Nobody really knows. Okay. You end up on a sequence where Kirk first appears at this funeral procession. Who the other people are, most of them, we've got no idea. Where it is, we don't really know. And this is an image of what Kirk looks like. And this is a deep fake version of him. And I agree with you. I was watching this thinking, friggin' hell, you'd swear black and blue that they've just lifted his head off Wrath of Khan or whatever else and stuck it on someone else's body. It was that impressive.
Yeah, it was one of those things I said to you. I think you might get more out of it than me because I think you do watch or have been involved in Star Trek more than me. But I think both of us were a bit mystified by the whole thing at the end, and it sent us down the rabbit hole of watching interviews and reading up and looking behind the scenes. And the great thing for me, the more I read about it, the more impressed I was where, okay, this was involved with all the estates. It was licensed by Paramount. They've got a huge budget, obviously. It's like way beyond anything a fan film could ever make. And I just think it's a nice coda to Kirk and Spock where they've kind of put a full stop at the end of their story. And it's a really nice one.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are saying too. Might have missed something. Is it a fan made? No, it is not. As we just said, it's professionally made by the deepfake people. It is made by Otoy, the company. Okay, they've had a hand in the deepfake side of things. You can find it on YouTube. And at the end, I'll show you the website where you can watch other movies made by the same company. Okay, so we have the funeral thing, this procession thing, whatever it happens to be. Now, this is, as you said, Robin Curtis playing Savik. That's her on the left there. And Sorak is the name of the Vulcan on the right. Now, for those who remember Star Trek 3, right, when Spock, when he was regenerating, he went through a moment where he needed some Ponfar action, putting it bluntly, and Savik had to do that. The idea is that this dude, Sorak, is the son of Spock. Okay, so that was that's the intention, that where that's all come from. Of course, he's now grown up and done whatever, but that's actually Robin Curtis playing Savik there. So, and his name was Sorak, so who knew that? But yeah, he's meant to be the son of Spock. So for those who didn't know that story, which is very, very cool.
And what I wanted,
what
I wanted to add there is it's really hard for them to get deep fakes and AI to act and emote. And I was incredibly impressed with this because you've got an AI de-aged, deep fake acting with a live person on set, and there's no words. And I said to Dags, you can see with no words, Kirk looks and says with his face, "Is that Spock's son?"
Yep.
And she sort of nods, and he smiles. And it's like amazing acting with no words, and I think that's next level special effects.
Yep, totally agree with you. They come across this dude. His name is Vore. He appeared in Star Trek Discovery, and apparently in that story, he's the only dude. He's some kind of time traveling interdimensional guy who can connect with the Prime timeline to the Kelvin timeline. As to why is anybody's guess, but that's the idea of it. And the theory is that he's somehow involved with bringing Kirk back. Make of that what you will. I don't know whether he fits in this grand scheme of things. Maybe it's because they could do it. They did do it. You go on.
It works because you remember Spock died in the Kelvin timeline, so they
yes, he did too.
He needed him to bridge the timelines between them, and I think that's the whole story where you've got Kirk in the afterlife, and he's reunited with Spock in an alternate afterlife in a Kelvin timeline.
Yep, sorry, I didn't miss that one, but yes, good point. Very cool. And once again, we're still sticking with the deep faking of Kirk, and it's absolutely freaking spectacular stuff. And I agree with you. They're getting the emotions down pat, considering there's no dialogue whatsoever. Of course, they do a version of his original series version, which is a very, very groovy. I thought this was really, really cool to see. And they do a similar thing from the film version as well. The only thing they ballsed up, and I thought I couldn't help it because I know my uniforms really well. The logo is too far to the right. It needs to be a fraction bit more to the left, but that's only a nitpick. But it looks like that's the close up there. Over there, that looks like a still photo from one of the publicity shots, dude. What is the deal?
Well, that was the thing. When I saw that, I was like, oh, they've lifted stuff from Wrath of Khan. They've got to have, but they haven't. Yeah. They remade all of it from scratch.
Looks absolutely spectacular. So he eventually gets to go to where Spock is about to die, right? This is Spock's quarters. And there's all these little things that they bring up. So like the little box there, which is actually from Star Trek Beyond, which I think occurred when Spock Prime, the Leonard Nimoy version, gave this box over to the Zachary Quinto version. Is that right? Because I've only seen Star Trek Beyond once. Am I right on that one?
Yeah, I think it is. I've only watched it about once as well, but I know that from watching the extras behind the making of this, that's what the intent was, that it was the memory box that Spock gave the other Spock.
Yeah, so for a lot of fans, because now the top photo is from Beyond. The photo at the bottom is from this movie, so they don't actually show inside the box. It was more of a, hey, that's a really, really cool thing that should actually be there. And of course, you got the IDIC symbol down the bottom, which was a very big deal for the original series. And of course, you got Spock himself. So it's a bit of a, I think a lot of the fans have just been having a bit of a wow moment, because obviously in the canon universe, Kirk and Spock never saw each other after generations. Kirk died on Viridian 3, and Spock went on to live on until, when does he die? Bloody Into Darkness or Beyond or whatever. So so this is a moment where they get to sort of be together. And as I've said, some people are seeing shots that replicate what happened in previous movies, the way the same camera angles, which is very groovy. Kirk still looks absolutely fantastic, as you can see there. And of course, that's the final scene going into the sunset. And that's effectively the whole movie. As I said, some of it's open to interpretation. Is not all cut and dry, but it is got everybody talking. And what do you reckon, dude? Pretty cool stuff.
Well, like I said, it's a good time to be a sci-fi geek at the moment, because there's a lot of stuff in. But this was out of the blue, so it was even, for me, better, because I wasn't anticipating this coming up. It just started buzzing all over the internet, and there it is. You can watch it for free, and it's like this new little chapter of the original Star Trek that I never thought I'd ever see. So that was one of the best, I guess, extras for Star Trek ever been made, in my opinion.
So the actual website is written at the bottom there, if you can remember all that, roddenberry.x.io. And there's actually at the top, you've got all these menus, and you can go through all these background extras as to how they made the movie, plus the other short films that they've made as well. I haven't gone through them, but what I have seen has been very spectacular. And it's all about keeping the legacy of traditional Star Trek alive. And they're doing a damn good job of it, dude, I got to say. So, that is very, very cool stuff. So, yes. So it goes for 9 minutes in total. As I said, there's no dialogue. It's just all music. But it's got a lot of people really dialed into it, which is very, very cool.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paramount could do a lot worse than handing over some more work to these guys. And when you look who runs the Roddenberry archive, it's a list of all these behind the scenes and actors and producers from the original Star Trek. So it's got some great pedigree to it.
It does. And you are right, Christy. It's bringing up the old, do you need actors question again? Digital, totally, right? As soon as this is occurring, it's that old chestnut about bringing back people, especially people who have passed away or actually a lot older than they used to be. Yeah, and of course, this is all done with the estate's acceptance, and they've all said yes to that, which is what I said ages ago. Right? If they say, yep, sign up to it, make it all happen, they could keep making movies forever. Once they get the dialogue situations sorted out, at the moment they can't speak. It's the one thing they can't figure out. And once they've done that, then who knows where it's all going to go. So, very cool.
Leonard Nimoy's wife was one of the executive producers, so you don't get much better than that. And you are absolutely right, because one of my favourite scenes in Dial of Destiny was when they de-aged Indy at the start of the movie until he opens his mouth, and even though they've got Harrison Ford, it just sounds like grumpy old man, not like Indy in his prime.
So just be wary, there's a difference between de-aging and deep faking. Okay, they're totally different technologies. De-aging is when you get the actual physical actor, you put the dots in their face and they take all the wrinkles out. Deep faking is when they're digitally creating the character. It's a completely different thing. So just be wary of that, kids.
Well, they've done both in this.
Yeah. So, and I think William Shatner actually acted in this as well, and they just replaced his face with the younger version, which is very, very cool. Yes, the future of where things are going, but it is very, very cool. And Star Trek, and all power to them, and no one else is doing stuff like this. It'd be funny if they did it down the Doctor Who route. Even Star Wars to it, but no, Star Wars is too young, but definitely Doctor Who. They could do that with some of the William Hartnell stuff or whatever else they're doing. Obviously, Patrick Troughton's making a reappearance, which is very cool. I can imagine just wanting the conversation back. Someone watches the war game and go, this is friggin' awesome. Where can I see more of this Docky? Who's this dude? Is this Docky number 16?
Well, what they have done, they've changed the ending and they've put a regeneration in. So that will be using different footage and CGI and stuff. So they have kind of done that for at least the last scene in this new version of Doctor Who.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, that kind of wraps us all up for the evening. And before we go, of course, got to show now, if you got to go to Aaron's store for a bit of sunny Saturdays, which is occurring in a couple of days' time, even in the pouring rain, off to the left of this photograph is where we're going to be sitting, Mr. Aaron, and you could be joining us. How good is that?
Well, do you know what? Chad's there for more on Mondays, every Monday as well. So anyone who wants to go along for that. But I'll tell you what, it's actually been really good for the street as a whole. I think there's actually quite a good community building up in the street with the cafes and us and a couple of other people who aren't on our side jealous of seeing what's going on the cool side of the street with all the cool kids. I don't know if you've noticed that. The other side of the street all empty, looking across with envious eyes.
It's like the Martians from War of the Worlds, which is very, very cool. Anyway, that's us for the night. We started off being really, really silly. We got really, really serious towards the end. We finally finished the 70s movies. I'm not talking about them ever again. I'm done and dusted. Absolutely fantastic. The Australasian June fan club. Everybody, the Australasian June Guild. Mate, you got to let us know what you think of that, fans. Do you want the barbecue? Do we want to sort of talk about something? The only thing we could cook is something cinnamon flavored, which is what spice is. How good is that, Mr. Aaron?
I think the first meeting should be at your place. You've had the longest running Star Trek. What about starting the shortest running club ever?
Yeah, I tell you what, it'll be 2 members, you and me, and that'll be it. So there you go. So I am the Quizouts Hatterack. What are you, the Benny Jesuit? Yeah, go on.
Active for one day.
Active for one day. Absolutely fantastic.
Before the committee argues and splinters like the guilds.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll find a way to fold space. Don't you worry about that. Anyway, guys, we're going to buzz off. Leave you to it. See you next week. Party hard, rock on, Yay team, and we'll catch you then, Mr. Aaron. Have a good one.
Thanks everyone for being here tonight. Have a good night, guys.